Tonight on That's Dark, follow us as we go through the case of Shanda Vander Ark and her abuse and murder of her son Timothy.
Shanda Vander Ark was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after being convicted of killing her 15-year-old son.
You testified yourself how highly intelligent you were. In fact, that's the only thing that you testified to that I think was actually true. To see what you did to your own child, I don't know if there's a word in the English language to describe how to describe it. I only can come up with just horrific. I didn't allow pictures to be shown in open court of Timothy as he was when he died because I didn't want people to remember him like that. A beautiful child with a lot of life in his eyes. That's who your son was. And you took that from him.
A Michigan mother, Shanda.
All right, Shanda, I have to search you before you're taken to the county, okay?
Shanda.
Like I said, Shanda Vander Ark will spend the rest of her life in prison without parole after being convicted of killing her 15-year-old son, who police found dead and severely malnourished inside the family's home. A judge sentenced Vander Ark on January 23rd, 2024 to 50 to 100 years in prison for child abuse and life without parole for her son's murder. Timothy weighed only 69 pounds and 68 inches tall at the time of his death. He had no body fat and few ligaments attached. Dr. DeYoung described his body as breaking down because he was starved to death. DeYoung said Timothy's cause of death was dehydration and malnutrition, and hypothermia was present as well. The manner of death was considered a homicide. I'm going to stop there for a minute.
Okay.
So, yeah. She's a piece of shit. No, sorry, I can't say that.
She's a huge piece of shit. Yeah.
She's a really horrible person.
She is.
You know, we can talk about a little bit how Timothy lived. Timothy Vander Ark. I think a good thing to put in there, and I just want to put this in because there's not a lot of information. I'm going to just kind of splice this in, but his father, Eric Ferguson, hasn't really come forth with much anything, but basically, Shanda had the kids taken from her. And this is in Oklahoma, and Eric won full custody of the children. And to me, that says a lot because that typically, and she only got supervised visits. Okay. So then Eric reaches out to Shanda. She's moved to Michigan. And then Eric reaches out to Shanda. And basically what she says, again, Eric hasn't come forward. So I'm going to say all what she says. But from what I've heard when you talk about Paul, you know, but said he couldn't handle Timothy. And so sent Timothy to her.
Great.
Yeah. And you know the time frame for that because you have a lot on that, you know, when it comes to the time frame. So I don't know if you want to talk about the time frame or how you want to do that. I today have a lot about the punishments.
Okay.
And we can go into that, but if you want to talk a little bit about the time frame of when Timothy arrived there and then Timothy's demise. And I do want to put out this, it's very hard for me to stay composed with this woman. Like, she's the worst of the worst, quite honestly. There's no excuse with her crocodile tears and her blaming everything on her son, Paul.
So Timothy went to live with Shanda and Paul May of 2021. He did have ADHD and autism. Also had speech and motor impairments, and these, from what Paul said, were diagnosed by a doctor. However, Shanda had decided to tell him that he doesn't really have that. And of course, Paul, being also manipulated and abused by her, believed his mother. So that right there tells you his mindset, you know, on how much he really believed every word she said, and what she said was gospel to him.
You could see it in any any type of recording of him. Yeah. Like he was just like, it's all about like, what do you want me to say, Mom? Like, what can I, am I doing this right? And it doesn't take away, like, I'm not taking away from the fact that he did this awful stuff, but it's like, I think Shanda, honestly,
Shanda.
I'm never going to stop calling her Shanda, should have been put on charges for abuse to him as well.
Absolutely.
Because she definitely abused him and made him her, it's that classic dysfunctional family.
Right.
He was her little partner.
Yes.
The star child didn't get in trouble because he did everything that mommy wanted him to.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then they had the scapegoat, which was Timothy.
Yep.
And everything Timothy, just to put out there, was not only there's no way that he was, was his autism or his ADHD or anything that he could have possibly done. To her, he was doing everything on purpose.
Right.
To her.
Yeah.
On purpose. That was her mindset.
Oh, yeah.
You can continue with the time frame.
He had been taking, or Timothy had been taking medication. However, Shanda had him completely stop taking the medication for whatever reason. I think we talked about, too, when we were talking about this earlier, that he seemed to be doing better. I believe he'd gone into some treatment center.
School, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had been doing better. And then once he went to live with Shanda,
all things
started declining.
He was in school, and the teacher said that he was wonderful.
Yeah.
He spoke really well. Like, he was verbal.
Yep.
And that he was great. They didn't have, and I mean, yes, like people with autism have some things, you can have it to the point where there is some, what you call behavioral issues, if that's what you want to call it. But the teacher said that he was great. So I definitely think on his medication, like, again, I don't know the father, but somewhere in that time, like somewhere, whatever he was in a program, whatever, he definitely was at least starting to somewhat
He was doing
thrive.
better.
Yeah, do better. Yeah.
So, where was I? From the time of May of 2021 till his death on July 6th of 2022, Paul recounted that he hadn't seen him go to a doctor at all, nor attend public school. Shanda did have him doing homeschooling, which was like on a tablet, but then eventually started printing out all of his things to do, and making him do it at the table.
And then let's go ahead and go into the segue. What was the time frame again? What was it from what to what that he died? It was May of 2021.
May of 2021 is when he got there. And by there, I mean he started living with Shanda, who was not supposed to have him.
Nope.
We should maybe explain that a little bit.
Court ordered.
So the only reason Paul was living with her was because he was over 18 at that time. We don't know the whole story of why he didn't continue to live with his father. There's speculation that maybe his father kicked him out at 18, but we don't know 100%. But it doesn't seem like the father had a great living situation for the kids either.
No, but again, we haven't got a full scope there. So
And for whatever reason, the father is just
not
in any of this. No. He wasn't part of the sentence. He wasn't in the sentencing.
Nothing. It's very weird.
Very, very strange.
But it was court ordered. It was court ordered. Like I said earlier, the kids were taken from her. She was only allowed to have supervised visitation, which tells you so much. But she moved from Oklahoma, where that court order was there, and moved to Michigan. But she still was not supposed to have Timothy. And like you said, Paul was able to go to her because he was over 18. So, but the father, from what I gathered, what I said, is that he said he couldn't handle, let me say gathered. Shanda herself said that the father reached out to her and said, I can't handle Timothy, will you please take him? Right. And that's how she ended up. And that was May 2021.
Yep.
And then
July 6th of 2022, he was dead.
That's
so pretty short time frame.
Yeah. That's crazy. And then you mentioned in your notes that like the Shanda's husband Adam was living there, and then Paul mentioned,
I can talk about that if you want. So once Adam, who was the stepdad, had a seizure, which was in January of 2022.
And that's her current husband.
That's her current husband.
Yeah.
So rather than staying after he had a seizure, rather than staying with his wife, and he had a son with her as well, he went to go live with his parents. And the reason they're giving is that since he had a seizure, he wasn't able to walk upstairs anymore, and Shanda had stairs in her house, so he went to live with his parents who didn't have stairs. However, after listening to numerous people talk about this, Things like this happen in families all the time, and people make it work. Can you imagine having this happen to Liz, and then just she goes live with her mom?
No. I would buy a new house.
Yeah, you make it work.
I would, yeah.
So that makes me wonder, I feel like there's something we don't, I feel like there's some reason that we may not know there a little bit, because I'm wondering, does he not feel comfortable around her? But here's what's weird. When Adam lived at the house, none of the abuse took place.
That's what I wanted to come out, yeah. So
it didn't take place there until Adam was out.
So when Adam left, what was the year that he left the house, or what was the time?
January 2022.
So January till July.
Yeah.
Paul and her went hard
on
the abuse.
Yes.
And literally killed him.
Yeah.
Within what? Is it 6 months?
7.
7 months?
Yeah. Roughly 7 months.
That is that time frame is so important to me, because not only at first you're like, oh, a little over a year, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But then you hear, oh wait, Paul said the abuse did not happen when Adam was in the home. Mm-hmm. So Adam leaves the home, and I almost feel like, and this is just my speculation, like nothing like that, but I almost feel like something has happened between her and Adam, and she took it out on Timothy, like 110%. Like she focused, like, because he seems to be the scapegoat.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. That's a good possible. Yeah. That's a good possibility, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Took it all out on Timothy.
Yeah.
Like maybe in her brain, she's like, oh, Timothy caused this, or whatever she wanted to come up with.
What if that was maybe the reason? Maybe let's just say Timothy was a lot, and he's like, I can't stay there while I'm recovering.
Stroke. Yeah, exactly.
And this is speculation, everybody.
Yeah. Not anything that's from
No.
Anything we've watched. This is just me and her.
This is just our brains coming up with things that very well could be.
Yeah. That just like hit my head when I was like watching these. I'm like, what if?
I didn't even think of that.
Because I totally have it. I lived in a dysfunctional family. Yeah. Like, there is a scapegoat. Mm-hmm. Timothy is the scapegoat.
100%.
110%. And he is a scapegoat for all of Shanda's anger.
Yeah.
Like, all of it. Whatever anger she has. Like, whatever.
Yes.
It's all for him.
Yeah.
Because when you hear her talking about, like, it was always like, he did this.
Yeah.
He's on a hunger strike. He wouldn't do this. He got up and, got into things. Well, he got into food. Well, I wonder why. Like, it was just all like, he messed up. He kept us up all night. So that's why we gave him ice baths, which I'm going to get into. Yeah. That's why the ice bath started. So they could keep him awake. So he slept, because he set off all the alarms and kept her awake all night. Like, she's just so narcissistic. It's disgusting.
It is.
Like, she just only thinks of herself.
Yeah.
Like, here she is, and you can, put a clip in there, but she killed her son. She knows she killed him.
Yeah.
She knows she abused him. And she's getting taken into jail. So she's just like, in the video when you're watching her getting taken in, right? Mm-hmm. Or even when how the body cam.
Yeah.
It's just all about like her. And then when she's going into, I just can't, I just have a weak stomach. I just, and puking and like, I have all these health problems. I need a asthma inhaler. Mm-hmm. I can't do a mask.
We're going to insert some clips of her now.
She says allergy induced asthma. She can't wear masks.
Like,
also,
what?
I really want to put in the clip of the corrections officer.
I had a doctor's note. I didn't bring it with me. I didn't know.
I hate to tell you this. This is not school. Dr. knows do not work. We have our own doctor.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She deserves a raise.
Yeah. She really does. Just you on drugs.
Oh my God. And it's just right there to see her whole world turn upside down, essentially, where she's probably been catered to her whole life, always makes everything about herself. And that's not going to happen here.
Oh,
that's
no.
not going to happen where she's at now.
I have a doctor's note.
And the corrections officer's like, that doesn't work.
Yeah,
here.
we have our own doctors.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, chick, you just got arrested for killing your freaking child.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to have comforts.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, I'm an eye for an eye, so I would have starved her. That's just me. Yep. But let's go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, why don't we get into the punishments? I'll talk a little bit about Paul.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
then go from there.
That's actually where I was going.
Okay.
So first I want to just talk about a little, which I most people who have seen this case know, but Timothy was forced to live in a small closet in their basement. A detective showed pictures of the closet, so on the court, like he brought up the pictures. It's on the internet. You can see it, indicating that the only objects that were in his little room was a blue tarp. That was his blanket. That's what he got to sleep on, have on him.
I also read she liked the tarp there so that she didn't have to give him as many bathroom breaks.
Oh, yeah,
and it wouldn't ruin the floor.
Yep, and an Amazon box.
Wow.
I could not figure out what the Amazon box was for.
Probably a pillow.
That's what I'm thinking. And the police, when they went in there, said it had an overwhelming odor of urine and feces. So there you go with your didn't want to give him as many bathroom breaks so it could be cleaned up. But obviously not well because they said overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right? So now you know that house is pretty big. This boy is having to live, not even have a bed, not have anything. He's living on a tarp and doesn't get to go to the bathroom all the time. And let's also bring it to the fact, I'm going to kind of skip forward to one of, I wouldn't say less, but he wore leg shackles. He had shackles, he had restraints that kept him where he had to be. And then we'll talk about the alarms and stuff. But some of the main punishments she really dealt out was the ice baths. And the ice baths, where I understand, came around because the offense hurt, what she says. There was a couple situations when Tim actually intentionally kept everyone in the house awake. He would intentionally set off the motion detectors. He would make noise. So, because of his intentional setting off motion detectors, which I don't understand that because I don't think so. I think he was just a kid wanting to move around the house. I don't think he was purposely. And even if he was purposely, still doesn't warrant it. So they started giving him ice baths to keep him awake so that he would sleep when they wanted him to sleep.
Let's start there. This is at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're saying he is not allowed to go to sleep, right?
Yes, sir.
So 3 o'clock in the morning, your 15-year-old child is not allowed to be sleeping. And if he does, he gets an ice bath, right?
Yes, sir.
And he'll get another ice bath, i.e. there's already been an ice bath prior to this text being sent, correct?
No, sir. It would be one and then another, is what it says.
Okay, well, let me read it again and make sure maybe I misread it. Let him know that if he tries to sleep at all, he'll get another ice bath sometime before you leave for work and another when I get home. There's two another's in there, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
The first another refers to the first ice bath. In other words, there's already been an ice bath, right?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not questioning what's in the text, but I don't know.
Okay.
Well, so with the ice baths, Timothy was often placed in ice baths as punishment. Soon before the day he died, he was actually placed in an ice bath for 9 hours. Yep. So,
so can you, what were some of the offenses, as she liked to call it? I know one was because he was keeping them awake, but the offenses that this 15-year-old was doing was one for wanting food.
I was just going to go there.
For food?
He wanted food. And he would, quote unquote, sneak food. And from all things I've seen, Shanda has a really big weird thing about controlling food.
Very weird about
big.
food.
And Timothy would get up at night, and I've had kids that do that, and sneak food. And that was huge for her.
Growing children.
Yes.
That's a thing they do.
So she would padlock the fridge and any source of food he could get to. And kind of moving into that then with the offense, he was being refused food. And it even went as far as all he got to eat was 4 pieces of bread. And they would often soak it in hot sauce. But the hot sauce, I found out, came about because Timothy snuck in and got, I guess the padlock got left off, and snuck a whole bag of chicken nuggets, frozen. That's how hungry this boy was. Frozen chicken nuggets, and ate them, the whole bag. And the mom, Shanda, was furious. And so then they started incorporating hot sauce. And so...
Not just hot sauce.
Nope. I'm going to get into that. So this hot sauce was very special. Now I'm going to say this was Paul's idea. So Paul's idea to buy this specific hot sauce. And the label of this hot sauce, this is what it said. Inside are 2 of the world's hottest peppers, Trinidad Scorpion and Carolina Reaper. It goes on to read the label. The pain becomes unbearable and you feel like you just ate a burning hot coal. That's when you realize extreme regret. Use with extreme caution or you will regret it. So I want to also put in here that Shanda, when in court, they said, would you eat that hot sauce?
Oh.
No, because Shanda has a weak stomach. She says, oh, I have a weak stomach. I could never eat that. I have a weak stomach. But she said Timothy loves spicy things. So the bread that he got started being soaked in the hot sauce. This extreme hot sauce. Not only that, but Paul would pour the hot sauce down his throat as well. And then on top of that, there's text. Because there's so much text. Like you can go on. There's text between Paul and the mom as Shanda. And it's so much. But she goes on to tell Paul, I wonder how it would feel to have that hot sauce on your private parts. I'm not saying touch him there. Not at all. But dripping a little bit there, is that horrible? Is that horrible? Now, this one, Paul refused. That was too far for Paul. He refused that one. But again, he did pour it down his throat. And it was his choice to get this specific. Like, I almost think the mom convinced Paul that Timothy was this monster.
He did, or
like,
she did.
100%. Like, Timothy was the cause of all their issues. So Paul, like, literally treated him like he was this horrible person. And can you imagine, like, you come up with, oh, I got an idea, Mom. You're her star kid.
Right.
We could use this hot sauce. Exactly. What kind of praise did she give him?
Right. Well, not to mention that, I want to backtrack a little bit with when Paul was living with the dad would tell him, your mom doesn't like you. She doesn't love you.
Yep.
So now you got to think of that.
Yep.
And now this kid is living with his mom and he's finding out, oh, she loves me. Not only that, but I'm her star child now.
Yep. We're buddies.
And he has literally said, even in the interrogation, he said he has very low self-esteem and he just wanted to make his mom happy and proud and just wanted to do everything she said. He just wanted her to love him, pretty much. Not that that excuses anything that he's done, but I do want to talk about where he put his foot down to talk about, or to put hot sauce
on the genitals.
On his genitals.
Yeah.
So that tells you right there that Paul, although he was manipulated 100% and was abused by Shanda also.
Yeah.
He's clearly not that afraid of her to be able to put his foot down.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I found it really interesting. I mean,
I find it interesting too. Why was that
yeah, that's like where the line is drawn, which is, good, but also why was nothing else? Why was leaving him in a tub full of ice, water, not a line that needed to be drawn?
Yeah.
But also, when you talk about how he really believed all of these things that the mom was saying, when he talks about it, like even in his interrogation, he really, the way he says it is, he was acting out. He was being punished.
That's 100%.
He was, it's almost like a crime to him. The way she made it seem, I think, although to most of us, we can all agree, it's not a normal household situation going on there. To him, it was. I think it was very normal to him to be that way.
And I also wonder, because of Timothy's autism, if Paul didn't get to have any type of a relationship with Timothy, because, sometimes when you have autism, like when I see the picture of that little boy, it breaks my heart. He looks so sweet and kind in his eyes. And I'm not saying, but like sometimes it's so hard to like verbalize their feelings or put it out there. And I wonder if he was able to almost have that wall up, because to him, he didn't have a relationship with Timothy. Maybe because Timothy needed so much help through his life. To Paul, Timothy was a problem.
Yeah.
Which again, doesn't account for any of this. I'm just saying, for Shanda, she's evil.
Oh, for
sure. But for Paul, I feel like that, like that interesting thing you said about we're watching the making of a monster. Like Shanda absolutely was turning her son into a monster.
Oh, 100%.
Because for like, he's going to have, I mean, he's going to be in trouble. Like it just is. But for him to be okay ever again, it would take extensive therapy.
Yeah.
because she has twisted and molded his brain.
Yeah.
You know?
I was listening to a psychologist talk about it too, and she was saying how she 100% believes he needs some sort of, not imprisonment. What's the word? He needs
Rehabilitation?
That too, but he needs like consequences.
Oh,
essentially.
Absolutely.
He needs consequences, but she
Just
was
for
talking
Timothy.
about, she was talking about how important it is that he not be put in general population. So especially where he's so susceptible to becoming manipulated, like you don't want him to be manipulated by a lot of these criminals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So even if he is in prison, which he more than likely is going to be, he's going to have to be isolated.
Oh, he could totally. I
but
completely see him getting manipulated
Oh,
and
yeah.
doing things because somebody in prison friends him.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched 60 Days In?
Mm-hmm.
That's all you have to watch to
yeah.
understand. Like he's going to want to do what he needs to do
Right.
to become one of these people,
Yep.
and it's a lot. Like
It is.
That means he's going to be giving up a lot, you know, to be these guys as like in
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
It's it's harsh. So
It is.
like. I agree with that, the not being in general population, because we're not looking at a 19-year-old boy. We're not looking at a guy who's that age or older in his head.
The way he is presenting himself is not of, I believe he was 20 at this time.
Yeah, that's right.
You can tell, I feel like it's pretty obvious to me that
Child.
there's something mentally not right with him as well. Not that it's wrong, but he definitely has some kind of like, I don't know what, but that's why he was supposed to have his sentencing the same time as Shanda, but they pushed that back so that they can they can test his like comprehension, I believe.
Yeah.
So his sentencing is going to be on February 26th, so we're going to be following that. And,
Yeah.
you know, once that comes out. But as of now, all we can really do is just kind of speculate on like what we think is going to happen. But I think it's pretty obvious he's going to get some kind of consequence, but he's going to need rehabilitation.
But I think they are going to find that he's not thinking like an adult. So
He's
I know
not.
he's an adult and he's going to have to pay for what
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to find that he does not think like an adult.
Right.
That I think they're going to find a lot of impairment in there
Oh, for
and
sure.
immaturity, because I think he's been very stunted by his living situation with his father and then with his mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's going to be the case, you know,
Yeah.
and continue to go on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so kind of to get back to the punishments. So one thing they made him that Paul, like she wanted to do that Paul would do, is he would have to go up and down the stairs. Timothy would.
Yes.
And it would be in chase style.
Yep.
And I don't know if you want to explain
Yes.
chase style.
So he would have to do stairs, which I also want to say, since he wasn't supposed to be living with Shanda, that meant he doesn't go outside.
Nope.
He doesn't leave the house.
Nope.
When he went outside, it was in the
Backyard.
backyard where no one can see him. He was able to walk the dogs in the backyard.
Yep.
And he would have to do stairs, which were outside in the backyard. They had like stairs going up and down the porch. And she would make him do stairs chase style, which is where she has Paul running behind him to make sure that he can go faster and faster. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And
Real
then
great.
and then I don't know if you found the alarms, but I do remember what you said about
Mm-hmm.
the alarms. She would set alarms on Timothy because he didn't like loud noises, of course. You know, he didn't
Yes.
like that suddenness. And she would torture him by having these alarms on him, and if he even moved, it would set him off. And I guess Paul said they were so loud.
they were so loud you could hear it through closed doors, through walls. And Timothy had very sensitive hearing.
Well, of course, noise sensitivity.
Yes.
All goes with that's absolutely accurate.
Yeah,
you know.
and so she knew that would drive him crazy. And it's really messed up because she also has the same thing.
Of course.
She has the same thing.
But all she thinks about is herself.
Yeah. So
I don't even think she saw Timothy. I don't
No.
even think she saw him as a person.
I don't think she did either.
I just want to put out there again, she birthed him from her body. I say that because that shows just how the level of just who she was.
Yeah.
You know, her child needed her.
Yeah.
He had autism. Yes, that can be hard. He had ADHD. I have 2 children with ADHD. It can be hard. But everything I would everything that I want for my kids isn't because like, oh my God, this is so hard. I'm like, I want them to have an amazing life.
Yeah.
I want them to have like the best life. I want to set up all these resources so they have the best life. And all of her, again, was just me. And so many, and I don't know what her home life was, but I'm sorry. I am going to speculate. She was spoiled. I don't think she was abused. I really don't. There's a woman that went and got her law degree. She passed the bar one time. She passed it.
Very
she
smart.
talks about how smart she is.
Her and Paul. Paul is very proud of her accomplishments.
Yeah. So here's a woman that if you would have seen her on paper, you'd been like, oh man, she has her stuff together.
Yep.
No, because while she was at work, she had cameras set up all over the house so she could watch and make sure that Timothy and Paul, that Paul was making sure that Timothy was doing exactly what she wanted him to do, which was not leaving that room, not eating food, and basically being abused the whole dang day. And then when she came home, she abused him with ice baths, with withholding food, to the point that when he died, he was 69 pounds. Like, he's 15.
Right.
And 69 pounds. And then I wanted to put in there that the last moments of Timothy were heartbreaking, you know. And I know that we're going to talk about Paul after that, but I just want to put in the last moments of Timothy were heartbreaking. And we can get into like really like some of the things she said, but the day before Timothy died, and she told Paul he should give his brother 2 pizza rolls if he behaves in the bathtub. So here he is back in the bathtub, ice bath again. Tell him if he actually sits up by himself and stays sitting up, he'll get some pizza rolls. Don't tell him it's only 2. And I'm okay if it's frozen rather than cooked.
Yep. Real nice.
It's like she wants to just dig a little bit. She wants to do a little bit further. Like it's like tell me that does not, she's getting joy from that.
She is.
Like how she's supposed to elevate.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Like she wants to torture like it's never enough.
No.
Ever.
It's disgusting.
Ever enough.
No.
And then we can talk about the words she said to Timothy when we go through a Paul. Because there are some words that she said to Timothy, which is believed to be right before his death.
The last.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also wanted to talk about Shanda and Paul's work schedules were conflicting, and I'm assuming it was done on purpose so that someone could always be home with him.
Making sure he's being abused.
So Shanda, what was her job again?
She was a law clerk.
A law clerk. Or, the judge's clerk.
Like she basically did all it's called a paralegal, essentially.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she worked from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the courthouse. And Paul worked as a dishwasher at Applebee's from 4 p.m. until close, which sometimes he wouldn't get home until 1 a.m. So they really were not home often together. And like you were talking about the cameras, when she was not at home, she would have an app on her phone which could access all of the cameras that were in the house, so she could always see what was going on. So when she was texting Paul to do things, she would make sure he was doing them.
Yep.
And so also, vice versa, Paul also had access on his phone to be able to go and look at the cameras when he was not home.
Yep. How much work did this woman get done? I mean...
I know. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
how much text they had?
It's insane.
Mm-hmm. Insane. What did she do? Why didn't she get fired?
Yeah.
My stomach just
so,
sorry.
So also I wanted to talk about the bathroom situation. So if Timothy had to go to the bathroom, he was allotted time frames. He was allotted 1 minute to pee and 2 minutes to poop. That's all he had. Yeah.
2 minutes to poop and 1 minute to pee. I'm sorry. I hear guys pee forever.
Yeah.
They pee forever. They can hold it forever, but they pee forever.
Yes.
And then 2 minutes. Who can poop in 2 minutes?
Right.
And if you can, bravo. Because that's some crazy fast pooping.
Yep.
That's just, she just set him up for failure. Man, she set him up for failure.
Like, she really did.
She really just set him up to just make sure he got punished.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know. It's crazy. So also kind of back to the cameras, since there were cameras in all of the house, you may be asking, well, that's a good thing? Because isn't there like proof of everything? Well, since the cops did not retrieve all of the evidence.
They retrieved the camera in his little space.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was still a camera left behind, and she was able to delete all of the footage on it. Paul said she destroyed the SD cards. She also got rid of a few other evidences, some of the alarms, I believe.
Yep.
And she ditched those in a dump, like, what is it called? The trash can at some, like, I can't remember what restaurant it was. But yeah, so she went and did that. Also, according to text, Paul explained to Shanda that Timothy had eaten part of burger crust. And I'm thinking that means, like,
just the outer little bit of burger.
So she instructed Paul to make him throw it up. So she made him stick his fingers down his throat and try to induce vomiting. I also want to add here, while Paul was, because he was testifying when he was talking about this. While he was on the stand testifying, you would see him, because Shanda was also there, and you could see him looking to where she was.
I saw that, yeah.
And it's like he was scared.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he was still, like, afraid to, like, speak up about his mother.
Like, because what's going to happen if they, in Paul's mind, got out? Like,
Right.
he just was like,
yeah,
you know, what do I say
he's
here?
Really, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you got to think, not only is more than likely someone who is not thinking on the age level that he really
definitely
is.
not.
He's already been abused, manipulated by more than likely both parents.
Yeah.
He is also, he has very low self-esteem, like he already said. He wants to just make his mother proud. And on top of that, his mother is so smart, and he literally thinks she knows everything. Like I already talked about earlier, how he believed what she said over a doctor. So that just tells you right there.
I can imagine that because of her narcissistic self. I'm sure she's like, oh no, I know Timothy.
Yeah.
I've known him. I'm his mother. Like, yeah.
It's really just wild. So what I want to do now is kind of talk about the day of. Wait, that doesn't. Oh yeah. Okay, no. This is about a month before, a little less than a month before the death of Timothy.
Okay.
On June 13th of 2022, Paul sent a picture of Timothy to Shanda. Wait, what? Paul sent a picture of Timothy to Shanda just to be like, he's looking really malnourished. Like, I think we need to feed him something. And all Shanda replied with was, give him some bread. Some bread. That's her response. Paul snuck him a peanut butter sandwich and scrambled eggs with cheese in it, but had to hide it from Shanda because, remember, she's watching him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's basically surveillancing all of the house all of the time.
Again, and how did she get work done?
Right. The day before his death, Paul was instructed to wake up Timothy, but Timothy was not very responsive, so Shanda told Paul to give him an ice bath. Timothy couldn't stand up on his own, so Paul had to drag him to the bathroom, which was around 2 p.m. according to texts. Paul was supposed to go to work at 4, but the tire in his bike was flat, so he had to wait until Shanda came home at 6 to be able to drive him to work. Between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m., Timothy was in the ice bath, unresponsive, also unable to move, from what Paul said. Shanda instructed that Paul give him a pizza roll to try to get him to be responsive, because also in the text, she's saying how he's faking it.
Yep. He's faking it the whole time.
She thinks he's faking.
He's doing all this, again, on purpose.
Right.
Here he is, 69 pounds, but he's doing it, she thinks he's doing it all on purpose to be bad.
Yeah. It's crazy. So she instructs him to give him pizza roll, put it in front of his face, and if he reacts and tries to eat it, you pull it back. And that's exactly what he did. So once Shanda came home, she took Paul to work, and they left Timothy in the tub while she took him to work. Around 11:30 p.m., Shanda texted Paul that Timothy was still in the tub.
Yeah.
I also want to backtrack here. There is another child in the house who's 7, who, while she's taking him to work, or while they're both not home, Because remember, there's a couple hours there daily where they're both not home. And the child is left in the room with a tablet. A 7-year-old. Just left in the house.
Yeah, that'd be me putting my son.
Yes.
No.
Insane.
And he's so smart.
He is
but
so
still
smart.
No.
But no.
Like, no.
That's
like,
just not something you do.
No.
And so also they have Timothy basically shackled in his closet, or what she calls the small room.
But this night, he's just in a bath, an ice bath.
But this night, he is in the ice bath. Paul got home around 1 a.m. from work and didn't check to see what was going on with Timothy. And then at 6 a.m., Paul had to get off to be, from what he says, dropped off at the premise of work, which I don't get. Because why are you going to get off work at 1 a.m. and then have to be up at 6 a.m.?
It does not make sense.
Something is not making sense to me there. Shanda made him aware that Timothy was not breathing, and Paul wanted to call the cops, but Shanda responded with no. So 18 minutes had passed from the time Paul was made aware that he was not breathing until the cops were called. Within those 18 minutes,
Gotta
Paul
get
attempted...
her story straight, right?
Yeah. Within those 18 minutes, Paul attempted to resuscitate Timothy, but was unsuccessful. Both Shanda and Paul got Timothy out of the closet and dressed him because they didn't want him. He was only wearing an adult diaper at the time that he died. And they didn't want it to appear that way for when the cops got there. So they pulled him out of the closet also to make it seem like he wasn't in the closet. Pulled him out. And got him dressed. And Shanda also instructed Paul to tell the cops that Timothy had gone on a hunger strike.
Yep.
And that he was found dead on his bed.
And she had no idea it was this bad.
Yeah.
In the footage, she's literally like, I had no idea. I had no idea it was, but there was no tears.
No. This is hours before he dies, right?
Yes, sir.
You look like that when you put him in the bathtub?
I'm sorry.
Gotta make me a moment. Yes. Ms. Vander Ark, do we have a trash can? I did. I placed a trash can.
Crocodile.
Nothing.
She's got
Like
crocodile
nothing.
tears.
She's just making the motions.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
That's it.
It's really unbelievable. So once police left, this is where Shanda went and disposed of evidence, including the vibration detectors, a camera upstairs that was not confiscated, and she broke the memory chip into 4 pieces and threw them out the window as they were driving to Paul's grandparents' house, because they went there that night. So now I kind of want to, now that we have kind of gone over all of that, I guess we can talk about the sentencing. She got life in prison, essentially without the possibility of parole.
She got pretty much 2 life sentences, honestly, and without parole, because she got sentenced for the abuse and then sentenced for the murder.
Yeah.
So
she's basically going to be in there forever. As far as Paul goes, we don't know yet. He hasn't had his sentencing. That's going to happen February 26th. We will be keeping up with that and then making another video once that is all out. But I want to talk about Duty Ron.
Duty Ron.
He's here on YouTube. I love him.
I watched so much of his stuff this week. Last week, too.
Oh my God, he's the best.
He really is.
So I really want to talk about some of the things they had said, and I'm going to link the video in the description also so that you guys can watch it if you want. So Ed Wallace, who's a retired NYPD first grade detective CSI, had made a comment. So Ed is someone who he has on frequently. They were both New York cops, or New York detectives, I believe. So he made a comment that he believes there's a chance that Paul may be able to be rehabilitated based off of the years of experience and what he's seen. And Ed said it's like when he was watching his interview or his interrogation with the police, it was like a light bulb had almost went off. Like we'd kind of already talked how he's been so brainwashed. You can see that when the cops are questioning him, like, why would you put him in this ice bath? And he's like, because that was his punishment. Like, he really thought, it was not even a thought in his mind.
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. But you could see after a while of the cops talking to him, that it's almost like something kind of like went off in his brain. And what I found really interesting was the cop had asked him, would you do that to someone you love? And, well, first he asked him, who is someone that you love? And he said his family. So then he asked, would you do that to someone that you loved? Would you do that to your family? And he said no.
That goes back to what I said.
Exactly. So that makes me feel like, did he not see Timothy as his family?
I almost think they just didn't have no relationship.
I think that's how Shanda made it to be. She made it to be where he's just this outcast.
I think that speculation the father did as well by being that he was put in a program. Again, speculation, because I don't know the ins and outs, but I don't feel like Timothy was like a serious part of Paul's family life, like except for being the sibling who has an issue and maybe went in a program or is separated. There was just some kind of separation there,
right?
So
100%,
yeah. So that makes that
yeah. So Ron, on the other hand, says that because there's not enough info on Paul and his background, that it's not fair to pass judgments, which I agree. However, the fact that he was 19 during this and he had a job at Applebee's, that shows that he had some sort of a life outside of his mother's brainwashing, and had plenty of moments where he could have reflected on his actions and chosen to call the police. We know he had his own cell phone. So that's where he says he could have even called it anonymously. Then Ed backs that up with the fact that the mother had the whole house surveillanced and had everyone in the house under her grips, essentially. Ron made a claim that yes, that's true, but when he was outside of the home, he had opportunities to do something about it. Then Ed made a claim, yes, but do you know what else we see this pattern with? Domestic violence.
Or even a kid who is being abused themselves. Oftentimes they don't step forward and say that this is happening to them. It's a teacher that maybe sees something, marks on them, or, but it's never a kid going, hey, I'm being abused.
Right. Well, it's how many times do we see people who are being abused? They never say anything because they're afraid, or they're afraid their abuser's going to find out. I think we see that with Paul even in court on the stand, and he's still looking at his mother like afraid. So then Ron made a claim that while he agrees, and that's absolutely true, within all of the texts, the mother didn't really seem to direct her abuse to Paul or force Paul to do things. And in fact, the time that Paul was asked to put hot sauce on his genitals, he put his foot down and said no. So he felt comfortable enough to put his foot down in that scenario.
Which, I mean, are all fair points.
Those are all good.
All of them are good points, because it is a kind of a back and forth thing with Paul,
Yeah.
It is like he had a job. But I'm sorry, he was a dishwasher at Applebee's, and nothing against dishwashers. No. But I have known like quite a few that typically when they have that job, they might be just a little bit, again, like mentally stunted, or, have some type of an issue because they have to, it's just a job that just doesn't take a ton, and again, nothing again, but it doesn't take a lot of, like, I guess you could say, skill in a way. Yeah. I mean, there's excellent dishwashers, but I'm saying what I've seen in there.
You can kind of zone out, and
you can zone out. You can do your things. And I burp, sorry. But yeah, like, so yes, he did have a job outside, but I think that's fair to say, again, people that are abused don't bring up the abuse, right? To people. I don't know what Paul's life was like in that house.
Right.
No one does. And I do think he has to face the consequences of what he did. He killed.
Yeah.
He killed his brother.
Ultimately, he was the one.
He was ultimately the one who killed his brother.
So there's 100%. I will be shocked if there's no time.
He's going to get time. He is. And I think he's going to get like full time. Honestly, I think it's going to be it for him, And it's sad, but it's also just like, again, as someone who suffered through abuse, like, you can make choices, and that's kind of where I agree with Ed on. Yeah. Or is it Ron who said it? You can make choices, right? You can choose to go along and be that same abuse, or you can choose to not ever want that abuse to happen to the people that you love. I went completely to the way of, like, when it came to my kids, I protected them with everything I had to make sure they did not ever suffer the same abuse, So I think it's, again, a right or wrong thing. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, Paul chose wrong.
Yeah.
And he chose that path, and he dealt out really severe, ridiculous abuse to Timothy, a boy that was 15 who did not deserve it. Nobody deserves it, right?
No.
But like, he did not.
No.
This woman is a monster. I think Paul, like you said in that one statement that was made, that this is the makings of a monster.
It is.
You know, and I think with that, like, I don't know where you are with your notes or if you want to share more, but I want to definitely close with like what that camera showed.
Yeah.
Shanda do.
Oh,
you know, on the end.
Yes.
So I don't know if you
100%.
have more that you want to.
This is all I have on him.
And we're going to, of course, touch on this again because, you know, his sentencing is coming. We want to, and I really would love more to come about Eric. Like, I want to know.
The father, the real father.
Yeah, Eric Ferguson.
I really want, I'm hoping more stuff comes out about it. I don't know how nothing has come about it, honestly, because I feel like it's pretty pivotal, you know, to like find out how his life was like living there, you know, how he handled the children.
Yeah.
Like,
how did he handle
weird
Timothy?
that we've heard nothing about it, I feel like. So
yeah.
Hopefully
And then
something will
do better, right? When it comes to our youth or our, especially our, you know, the ones that have disabilities, we got to do better by them. Like, I feel like even as far as we've come in America, like, we're just not very good at taking care of the ones that need taken care of the most.
Yep.
And I just really wanted to put that in there because I just feel like we still don't have the resources or do enough, you know, with people with disabilities. And then let's go ahead and step back and say children in abused homes.
Yeah.
We don't have the resources or the people or the correct people to protect these kids.
Right.
And we just got to do better. But I do want to, you know, kind of put in here near the end that we talked about how one camera was left in there, and it was the one in Timothy's, you know, his room area. And in Timothy's, what they believe is his last moments, because in this camera footage, it's very heartbreaking. They watch Timothy shallow breathe and then stop breathing and eyes go open. Shanda is seen dragging him into the room, you know, naked. Is seen dragging him in there. And the whole time she's basically acting like he's faking.
Yep.
And she's saying, she calls him pathetic. She pulls him in there on there. So he absolutely was not dressed. So when you read that, they absolutely got him dressed because he was not dressed. And he's breathing out of his mouth. And so she then clamps his mouth shut because she keeps telling him to quit breathing like that. Timothy's dying. And she's telling him, stop breathing like that. And then she clamps his mouth shut and holds it shut and says, see, dummy, you can breathe out of your nose.
Yep.
And then says, you're being pathetic. Stop being pathetic. So this boy, in the last little bit of his life, got to hear his mother tell him, call him a dummy, continue to abuse him, didn't get to die in comfort, got to die on a cold tarp in the basement, and then was called pathetic repeatedly. This woman's a monster. She's a monster, and I firmly believe life is not enough for her.
I agree.
I firmly believe she should be shut in a little room,
Yep.
given ice baths, made to eat hot sauce,
Yep.
shove it down her throat, and then let her starve.
Oh, she's not gonna have a good time where
No,
she's at.
but I
That's
think
for
that she
sure.
should have that done to her.
I
I really
agree.
do.
I
She's
so
a
agree.
monster. She's disgusting, and she's pathetic, and a pathetic excuse for a human being. And I hope all the karma comes at her full blast for what she did to Timothy. Paul,
Absolutely.
it's
tough.
tough.
It's
tough.
really a tough case.
It's tough
it
with
really
Paul.
Is.
It's tough with Paul.
Yeah.
It really is. And, you know, that's kind of where I'm at with the case right now. It's tough with Paul. Shanda is a piece of crap. She can head on out and die for all I care, honestly.
Yeah.
I just don't care. Like, she's a piece of crap. Like, doesn't deserve to breathe the air that she just doesn't deserve anything. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just so disgusted by her. Especially, I'm a mother. And even people that are not mothers, but, like, I'm a mother. And I can't ever fathom
No.
doing that to one of your children.
No, absolutely not.
So Shanda can fuck off. That's how I feel. She can just get all the karma put on her and have a really sad time in life. So, and I just, that's kind of, I can't get out words enough.
No, I know. There's
talk
no
about my hate
words
for
to
her.
explain how frustrating it all is.
It's so
There's
frustrating.
Really not.
It's so frustrating. But Paul, that's one that I have to develop more on, because the things that I've seen of him just said, he just isn't, I don't see, I don't see a cold-blooded killer.
No.
But I definitely know.
You can see how it can go
there,
the other way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can see how it can turn into something bad with him.
Yeah.
And hopefully he can get some sort of rehabilitation. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really tough. We'll only see in the next, it's really not that long from now. I think it's a couple weeks till his sentencing. And
we'll cover it after.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
sentenced. We can talk about Paul more.
Yeah.
That there is the case of Shanda Vander Ark and her horrible abuse to her son Timothy, and I hope that his next life is just amazing.
Yep.
I hope he gets to have all the love that he could ever want in his next life. So.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know that was a tough one
to
listen to, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.